of the Blueprint Board. And at this point, we're going to, I will entertain a motion to recess so that we can then reconvene as the IA. There's a motion and a second. Without objection, show the Blueprint Board meeting in recess. And Mr. Mayor, I will turn it over to you and the county chairman for the next portion of the agenda.
Okay, excuse me. We'll call this meeting of the comp plan hearing to order, rather.
Intergovernmental agency.
It's intergovernmental agency.
If you look up, we've prepared a slide. What you're actually doing is you're gonna call to order the city commission, and Commissioner Chairman Maddox will call to order the county commission. Artie White from your planning staff, well, you see it there.
Great. And are we meeting jointly?
Yes.
You're meeting jointly, yes.
Okay, so this meeting of the City Commission is now called to order.
Meeting of County Commission is now called to order.
Is it too soon to move option one?
Just the briefest.
And public.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Chairman, if I may, Artie White has just about 5 slides to walk you through the one significant issue.
It's good.
Artie?
I think you got the message, Artie. Be brief, brother. Be brief.
Yes, Commissioner. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm happy to bring you the final amendment of the 2018 Comprehensive Plan cycle. All of the other amendments have gone into effect. This is the last amendment. It is to the intergovernmental coordination element. Basically, it does 2 things. It clarifies voting procedures, and it also removes the limitation on the number of comp plan cycles you can have annually, consistent with changes that were made to Florida statutes. The local planning agency recommended approval of this. This was transmitted to the state on April 10th, so this is the last public hearing for this item. In order for the city to vote on this, I'll need to read the title into the record. This is the adoption public hearing on ordinance number 18-0-20, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee adopting text amendments to the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan, providing for severability and conflicts, and providing an effective date. The staff recommendation for this is to approve it.
Are there any public speaker cards on our item?
They're not for this item.
Hi, Shalonda. I'm dialing in. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on, Commissioner Jackson, and based upon the prior IA action, I think you stand with your unit.
Not yet. What we'll do is IA approved, but the county did not. So before the county vote, I'll ask for a vote allowing Commissioner Jackson, Vice Chair Jackson, to participate by phone from the county only, and then we'll take up the matter of
Motion
the
on to that
Move
effect.
approval of the city on behalf of the city of the item.
Second.
We're good.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously.
Move for the county?
No, not yet. What I need a motion to approve Commissioner Vice Chair Jackson participating by phone.
I make a motion.
Motion made by Commissioner
Oh,
Lindley,
no.
seconded by Commissioner Dozier. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries without objection. Now we'll move to the county portion. Do you want to give a presentation or?
This is actually the presentation. The county also has an ordinance, and
Make a
staff is.
motion for option 1, which gets us in compliance with the 2011 legislative change, allowing us to have comp plan changes more than twice a year, if we so choose.
That would be option 1B, correct?
That's correct.
Option 1B has been moved by Commissioner Lindley. Can I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Dozier. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries without objection.
Is there a motion on behalf of the city?
We already did.
We just did that.
Just did it.
Oh, great. We went first.
Yeah.
Are we out of this joint meeting thing?
I think the motion to adjourn on both sides.
Great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Any objection? We're good. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Artie.
Mr. Chairman.
Just, Mr. Wait, let me reconvene. Did you have a?
We're good.
Okay. Let me reconvene then the meeting of the Intergovernmental Agency. Commissioner Maddox, did you
No, sir, I'm good.
have anything? Okay. All right. So we're now on the agenda for Blueprint. And we're going to start with the chairman's report, or agenda modifications, I'm sorry, which you do have. Those should have been put at your place during the recess. Agenda modifications, Ben?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, you see before you a series of agenda modifications. Most of it's supplemental material that's been placed at your desk. It includes a attachment to the minutes in item number 1. It includes a distribution of a copy of the CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It includes a copy of the annual performance report, which I will talk about here momentarily. It includes ratification of IA board workshop items, and number 8 being pulled from consent, I believe, and I believe that is the total of the agenda modification.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments? Okay. We'll start with item number 2. Do we need to take any action on?
No
agenda
actions.
Modifications. Okay.
Without objection, no actions on that, and then we're into the informal informational presentation.
Okay, we're on item 2, informational items and presentations. CAC Chairman Hugh Tomlinson. Hugh, is Hugh here? I thought I saw him. He's coming. Oh yeah, there he is. I thought I saw him. Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and IA members. I'm Hugh Tomlinson, Chairman of the Citizens Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency Citizen Advisory Committee, and I reside at 1187 Rons Point Drive East. On June 7th, the Citizens Advisory Committee received Blueprint project updates, which included Capitol Circle Northwest, Southwest, Magnolia Drive, and Cascades Trails Segment 3. We also received OEV project and status reviews, which included an overview of the second quarter data dashboard, the Workforce Incentive Program, and a scorecard of the city and county's use of the MWSBE firms. We also were provided with a presentation from MGT on the Tallahassee-Leon County Disparity Study, which is in process. We were presented with information regarding implementation and funding options for the Blueprint 2020 program, which included focused projects slated within the first 5 years, sales tax revenue projections, and IA prioritization. Although it was presented last and the committee would have enjoyed more time in discussion, we're hopeful the forthcoming workshops, which I think you just had, and research on possible options discussed will provide viable avenues to jumpstart countywide infrastructure projects in Blueprint 2020. During the consent agenda process, we unanimously approved the CAC minutes from April 19th and the aforementioned project reports and agency status reports. In general business, we unanimously voted to recommend this IA board accept staff recommendations to procure Walani Boulevard Phase 1, authorize the PD&E study including budgetary allocation, and approve the funding strategy put forth for design and construction for the Walani Boulevard Phases 2 and 3. And our next Citizen Advisory Committee will be held on September the 6th at 4:30, and this concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Any questions for the speaker?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Blueprint project updates, Ben?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've got as is the norm, we've got a handful to go through. We're going to go through them pretty quickly, but a lot of information. And this really gives you the opportunity to dig in deeply to some of the matters that are covered in consent without having to pull those items. But the first thing that I wanted to pull out and highlight here, and it is on consent, the next one, is our annual performance report. As you know, and you're probably looking at it, historically this was just done in text format. The work that the city and the county does respectively is phenomenal, and the county's annual performance report and the city's are wonderful documents. Well, we're pretty proud on behalf of both of you for the work that we do at the Intergovernmental Agency and through Blueprint and your Office of Economic Vitality. So we didn't want to miss the opportunity to highlight this. Flip through, you see some of it come up here. It's been a very busy year. I think about Smoky Hollow opening, think about the improvements with the Magnetic Task Force. I mean, we built upon even more tonight, but you prioritized all of your 2020 projects. Beginning the Southwest Area Transportation Plan, finishing the trailhead of Magnolia Drive, the Magnolia Drive Trail. There's a lot here. Obviously, we're bullish about the next few years, but absolutely wanted to pause and and sort of highlight this and answer any questions that you have. Thank the Citizen Advisory Committee members for their participation during the past year, and looking forward to another great year of productivity within your Blueprint agency.
Okay, any questions for Ben? Any comments? Okay. Office of Economic Vitality project updates.
I think we have Blueprint infrastructure next, Mr. Chairman. If I could turn it over to Blueprint Planning Manager Autumn Calder.
Autumn.
Walk us through.
Just a few slides. Starting with Capital Circle Northwest Southwest, we moved this project forward to completion in March of this year, and it delivers a major community improvement by tripling the vehicular capacity, adding sidewalks, bike lanes, and a multi-use trail, as well as 2 new parks. One that's already open, the Broadmoor Park, which is off of Jackson Bluff Road on the outside of Capital Circle, and then a new park that's entering into design later this year, the W. Lightsey Nature Park. But I'd like to give a big thank you to all who worked on this important project, and of course to those who will maintain it into the future. But let's start with our funding partner, the Florida Department of Transportation, so a big thanks to them. And then Lochner, who did the design, Atkins, who did the construction engineering inspection services, and of course our contractor, Anderson Columbia. And finally, a big thank you to city, county, and Blueprint staff, both past and present, who kept this project moving forward over the last 5 years. Magnolia Drive Trail Project. Design for the Magnolia Drive Trail Project is underway, and it follows the recent direction from the IA board to add a landscape buffer between the road and the multi-use trail, as well as undergrounding the electric utility. We'll start the right-of-way acquisition process this fall for the segment between South Monroe and Meridian, and begin the construction for the retrofit on Phase 1, which is from Meridian to Pontiac Drive next summer. This project is an example of working with our partners to make a good project even better, and those partners are Leon County, City of Tallahassee, FDOT, and of course the recently completed segment with Big Bend Cares. The Capitol Cascades Trail Segment 3 project from Pinellas to Gamble is nearing completion, and once opened, it'll make the much anticipated connection to the St. Mark's Trail. We are deep in the design of the Segment 3D Regional Stormwater Facility and plan to advertise the construction with the FAMU Way Phase 3, which continues this opportunity to simultaneously deliver the water quality, greenway, and roadway improvements to the community at the same time. This phase also includes the design and construction of a new trailhead for the St. Mark's Trail that will be just southwest of the Gamble Street roundabout. We're preparing an agenda item for later this year that'll contain a proposed master plan for the amenities along Cascades Trail Segment 3, and those amenities will go from Lake Anita all the way over to this regional stormwater facility. And some of the amenities that will be included are ones that the I Board has already approved and seen, which is the History and Culture Trail, as well as the skatable public art facility. And then last update for today is just working in concert with our partners at the CRTPA on the Southwest Area Transportation Plan. We have our first public forum scheduled for that meeting 1 week from today. It's at the Perry Library off of South Adams Street. That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Dozier.
May I ask a quick question? Thank you, Autumn. I just wanted to go back for a quick second. Commissioner Miller, I think you were on the right track during the workshop that we've got a lot of work coming our way, but I also want to acknowledge how much you all have managed in the last few years. As Blueprint 2000 is coming to an end and doing the transition overlapping with 2020, it's been pretty exceptional and seamless. So thank you all. It's been a huge push in the last year and a half to get through all the ranking and to the point where we got today. So really appreciate that. And this next question may not be one for the Blueprint table, but I'm not sure where it comes. It has occurred to me that once we get to the new trailhead for St. Mark's, we may want to take a glance at that trailhead to the Woodville highway where most people recognize the trail begins. My understanding is there's kind of a different feel in that section. I'm not a bike rider. I have not been on that section, but I'm just wondering if it was Blueprint, if it was city, county, or someone else, maybe some direction in the future. I think when we open that trailhead, ensuring that that next leg, the middle portion, is up to par would be really great. So any advice in the future or direction on what body should take that up, I would appreciate.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. We want as many people using it as possible. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Any, Commissioner Miller?
I want to just follow up on that because that's been a big do it coming from me for a long time. And so a little bit more definition as to what's being planned. I would hope that it would be similar to the other trailhead too. And you might have a whole lot of more activity coming directly from FSU and FAMU on this one too. And so it's important to get a real good, solid, I can hold enough traffic and cars, parking type situation in this trailhead. They had to, I believe, expand the other one, and it is busy, 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 busy. So, and can you give us an update on that in September, specifically on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. We're on consent. I would remind you that item number... Oh, okay. All right. Okay, we'll hear the update from the Office of Economic Vitality at this point. Al?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, we have several updates for you today. First, I'm going to hit a few high-level overview items. Then Daryl Jones is with our MWSBE unit is going to give an update on that program and the significant progress that's being made there. And then finally, Reggie Smith, thank you. Reggie Smith is here with MGT to provide an update on the disparity study. So with that, I'm going to go ahead. Susan, if you would just fly in all of the items, that would, I think, that would make it go more smoothly. Commissioners, I know you've probably already seen this data before, but I just want to highlight a few points for emphasis. Overall, our second quarter economic development report tells us that our economy is performing well. Employment or local economic growth or local job growth is up 2.1% or 3,000 jobs. Our average average weekly wage is positive, up 1.1% for the last 3 quarters of 2017. Taxable sales for December 2017 was actually down 1.3%. And as you would expect, when such a significant item is trending down, we're going to be monitoring that very, very closely and reporting back to you on a much more regular basis. In the first quarter of 2018, new single-family construction permits were the most in the first quarter of any year since before the recession. Median home prices were up by 17% in March of 2018 as compared to a year before. Home prices were up on average 11% in the first 3 months of 2018. That bested Florida, which was at 9%. The passenger count out at Tallahassee International Airport was up 8.4% for the first quarter of 2018 compared to 2017, which was the most since 2008. Commissioners, our research in business analytics is second to none. What we are doing in that area is envied all around the country. There are not, you can look hard, but you're not going to find many communities that are doing an economic dashboard report, especially one as comprehensive and as sophisticated as ours. We focus on data integrity. We utilize the most credible information available. We're transparent in the data that we provide you. That is, we provide the good news and the bad news. In addition to the data points that we capture, we also monitor industry reports, or excuse me, research reports on all segments of our economy, including cost of living issues, or excuse me, including quality of life issues. We're responsive with the data we collect. We use that data to inform new programs. We use the data to inform the new programs and initiatives that we create. We share them with our leaders to inform your policy making, and we also replicate them out to our partners so that they can determine what, if anything, they need to do, what actions they need to take, steps they need to take as well. Commissioners, what you see on the screen now is our project activity. And we are starting to track our project activity by industry, by our targeted industry. So you'll see at the bottom of the right-hand chart a color code for our targeted industries. And above that, you'll see what percentage of our projects fall within those color-coded categories. Now that we know what our targeted industries are and we're tracking them accordingly, I want you to start looking at this activity report in a different way. Please resist the temptation to just look at it as numbers on the screen. These are actual companies. Companies that are evaluating Tallahassee, Leon County to see if they want to locate or grow here. We can't tell you if the odds of them locating here are 50%, 60%, or 70%, but what we can tell you is that they are interested in this community and our community assets, which means we're in the game. And statistically, as long as we're in the game, it's just a matter of time before we chart a win. So resist the temptation to just look at these figures or these presentations as figures anymore and see companies when we project these slides. Leon Works. One of the things you expect from your Office of Economic Vitality is to constantly improve our products, our programs, our initiatives. And so with your input, we are doing that with Leon Works. This year's program will be held at the Tucker Civic Center. It will be strategically aligned with our targeted sectors, and it will be regional in our focus. We're working with CareerSource to make sure that the jobs align with the occupations that exist in the region. Next slide. Commissioners, as we continue to build our brand for Florida's capital for business, we have a short video we want you to watch on why companies say they choose Tallahassee to locate their business.
Man, it's all about the community. It's about the people. It's a place I want to be and a place I want to have my business.
And I decided to start my company in Tallahassee, Florida because I'm from here. Proud graduate of Florida University and Florida State University. And I wanted to create a place, a residential accelerator, where students could actually grow, learn how to start a company in 1 year, and launch it to create jobs.
I decided to start my business in the Florida capital because this community decided to be a great place for startups, and it's working.
I chose to start a business in Florida's capital city because here you have the opportunity to build the community you want to see.
So the reason I decided to do business in the Florida capital is because not only is it my hometown, but it's given me everything I needed in order to create a thriving business right here. I couldn't think of a better place where I'd want to start my business, Tallahassee.
Okay.
Supposed to go in and out like that?
No, it's not.
It's very effective value. Very effective.
Keeps your attention.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd rather
Our commissioners, as promised, Darrell Jones is now going to make a presentation relative to MWS. I'm sorry.
We got a question. Commissioner Dozier for
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I thought I would ask a question now before we moved on to the second part.
Yeah.
The video looks great. I'll start there, but it does strike me that that is a focus of people who have chosen to remain here. It's kind of the retention piece and the entrepreneur piece, right? We could do the same for recruiting businesses. Is that right? Why someone chose to relocate here or something like that? Is that?
Absolutely. Not to get in front of Al, but as part of a comprehensive strategic and communications plan, absolutely, we will leverage our opportunity to be champions here at home, and we will leverage the opportunity to champion ourselves to outside parties that are looking to come here. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's wonderful to promote ourselves. Those were some great folks on there who are repeatedly hometown and everything else, but the missing, as you said, Al, if we're in the game, we've got to show people why people choose to move here too.
Right.
So I'm glad you're focused on that. Are you looking at Google Analytics, tracking who's seeing the dashboard and who's coming into the site? Are those numbers going up over as we build out this data? I'm glad we have the best, one of the best sites. I just want to make sure people are finding it.
And, we do track the Google Analytics, and if you're looking for a response, we can bring it to you at the next meeting, or if you want an answer right now, we can actually have next meeting.
Next meeting is fine.
Okay.
In fact, if we're going to do a workshop for OEV and look at marketing more in depth and everything like that, I think that would be a very interesting metric to see. Obviously, we're still at the beginning, but you all have done a great job with a lot of marketing tools, and I think we should start to track that as well. It's been helpful in other organizations to make sure we're hitting that mark.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Dozier, you'll see that further in the agenda, we do have a request for an appropriation for business recruitment and incentive, from the Business Recruitment and Incentive Fund for strategic marketing. So that will be addressed.
Mr. Chair, that
You got ahead of us.
I did not want to jump that far ahead, but this information aligns with that, and I wanted to make sure we connected those two pieces.
Right.
So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Darrell?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Part of what we do in the Office of Minority Women and Small Business Programs is informed by the strategic plan and subsequent work plan. Part of what we were challenged to do as a part of our consolidation was to provide services that would help our businesses who hold our certification to build capacity. So to that end, we created the MWSB Academy. And what we did was we engaged with resource partners like FAMU Small Business Development Center, Career Source, the Jim Moran Institute, and others, and to include our own procurement offices to provide training so that those persons who held our certification could best navigate our procurement process to, in turn, be able to enjoy a greater part of greater play in the whole procurement process. Subsequently, we engaged more than 100 businesses. Also, the B2G Now software that serves as our contract compliance software has now become fully automated. So now we're engaging with our businesses to certify online, and subsequently, it's making our office a whole lot more efficient. Also to that end, the strategic plan also informed that we should expand procurement opportunities. So what we're delighted about is that our certification not only qualifies our certified minority and women-owned businesses to participate with both city and county procurement. Most recently, you have authorized us to create an MOU with the Leon County Sheriff's Office. So now the Sheriff's Office meets their supplier diversity needs with persons who hold our certification. Agenda item 11 will authorize you to create that same type of relationship with Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, Florida A&M University, and the Tallahassee Housing Authority. So imagine now, if you hold our certification, not only does the city and the county look to our certification to meet its needs, now major entities like the Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, FAMU, and Tallahassee Housing Authority will do the same. So, in doing so, we are amping up our efforts to recruit more minority and women-owned businesses to meet the needs, particularly of our city and county government. To the credit of the great persons who constitute our staff, Ms. Shanae Wilkes, LaTanya Raffington, who between the both of them have nearly 4 decades of experience in minority women and small business enterprise programs, we've been able to amp up our certification to bring on 62 new businesses. Also been able to recertify 68 new businesses. Now, the impact of that has meant for us, with more people involved, with more businesses competing for services and the dollars that we spend, in 2016, we had $21.5 million in minority women-owned business spend. In 2017, we had $23.2 million in minority women and small business spend between both governments. So it's a net difference, an increase of $1.7 million. Part of that, and we won't lay credit for everything, but I think the fact that when we certify them, we then prepare them for the procurement process and to navigate it more smoothly and to be thoroughly engaged, I think makes the difference. Now, one of the things that we did Our EVLC chair, Steve Evans, told us in a meeting that we should capture our champions. And so we use that concept to recruit more businesses and make them aware of what it is to hold our certification and the benefits therein. And I'd like to share this with you. Many of you may have seen them on during Small Business Week during the early morning news broadcast on WCTV.
I'm Herb Roberts. I'm the owner of Lawn Keepers of Tallahassee. We're a full-service lawn care and landscape company. What's been our secret to our success and sustainability is recognizing, first of all, that you've got to kind of adjust when the market changes. I start with the FAMU organization. They offered an opportunity to teach me, a new small business, how to interact as a contractor with the city, county, and state. As for the Jim Moran Institute, this organization taught us the 4 M's of management: market, management, model, and how to make money while you were really in business. The Office of Economic Vitality, they listened, they took action, they went back and established programs that helped small businesses to get some of the training. These 3 organizations were vital in us being successful.
And so, following the example of Mr. Evans to capture our champions, we figured that our champions could do a better job of telling our story far better than any pamphlet or even just the website, to hear from businesses who have benefited from their certification with our program. Now, if there aren't any questions, I'd like to introduce Mr. Reggie Smith with MGT of America. As you know, it was more than a year ago that you authorized us to secure a vendor and to start our disparity study. We are in the throes of it right now. I want you to know, and he'll describe it even more intimately, but the community response and engagement in this process has been overwhelming, and we're delighted and we're excited even more at what we believe will be the outcomes from that disparity study and from the engagement with our neighbors in our community. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you briefly about the disparity study. I had an hour-and-a-half presentation planned, but then I was told I had 5 minutes, so I'll briefly go through this.
Brief, brother, be brief.
Be brief. Okay. Well, basically, I'm going to talk about two of the components of the study. We've been engaged in this study for a while now, and we're rapidly coming to a close. So by this fall, we'll have the results of the study, and we'll be able to share with you our findings, conclusions, and recommendations. Going to talk about 2 components. There are about 15 different tasks that we do when we conduct these studies. Some of them run concurrently and some of them run consecutively. These are two of very important components that we're going to discuss today, which is the research, collecting the data and doing the analysis, and then the community outreach and engagement. So far, we have done several things. Well, many things in this study, but we basically have collected policy documents, reviewed those, conducted policy interviews with city, county, and blueprint staff to make sure that we've got an understanding of the policy. What we're trying to do is determine whether or not any of the existing policies are creating barriers for MWSBE firms trying to win contracts. So that's one of the reasons why we look at the policy. We've conducted stakeholders interviews, which are individuals and business associations and trade organizations, to hear their concerns related to what's happening with the business climate of trying to do business with the entities and the agencies, or doing business with the agencies. So we want to hear from them. We've done what we call a legal framework analysis, which gives us the legal basis to make sure that the disparity study methodology is sound, and that our methodologies that we're using in the study will give you your factual predicate, which was the legal basis to continue a program of inclusion. We've did what we call a data analysis, data assessment, and data collection. So what we want to do is find out exactly where the data was housed, whether it was electronic or hard copy. We want to make sure that we're able to retrieve that data and get that data from the different systems or manually collect it if necessary. So we've analyzed the prime contract data, and we did that in May. And for the county, we have established a relevant geographic market. One of the landmark decisions in the disparity studies arena is the Croson decision. And basically what Croson is saying is that you got to have a compelling interest. Agencies have to have a compelling interest to have a program. It has to be narrowly tailored. And you have to make sure that it's based on the businesses and the different firms that are in your local area. So we have to determine that local area for the county, the city, and Blueprint. We've done a private sector analysis. What we're doing here is looking at what's happening in the private sector, what's happening in the commercial world where there are no goals. So we're looking at building permits. We're looking at what's happening out there with primes and with MWBE subs. And then what we would do is compare the two, compare what's happening in the private sector to what's happening in the public sector to see whether or not we've got any issues going on between the two. What we want to make sure is that if a prime is doing business with the government and not doing business, and having MWBE participation with the government and not doing it in the private sector, then that's what we call some passive discrimination. And we want to look at that and make sure that if we can identify those primes that are in both sectors, the private and the public sector, then we will discuss that with you and for further action. We've done stakeholder kickoff meetings. We have done meetings with the MWSBE Citizen Advisory Committee. We made presentations to them. We've engaged them with them as well. Had a focus group with them last week, which was very informative. We've conducted 4 community meetings so far, and we've had about 40 people to show up, and we've had 25 to give testimony. And these are 25 individuals that got up and told us about their experiences in doing business or trying to do business with the county, with the city, and with Blueprint. Some good comments, some not so good comments, but that's what we want to hear from all sides of the table, so that will help us when we formulate our recommendations based on information we're receiving from the community. We've conducted 3 focus groups and had over 30 participants in those focus groups, and that's a little bit more intimate setting where we actually basically one-on-one with the people at that particular group to hear about their experiences in doing business or trying to do business with the agencies. And we've done printed materials and emails, and we've engaged with trade and business associations. And here what we're trying to do is make sure we reach as many people as possible through these business and trade organizations. We ask them to get in touch with their membership, make sure that they're aware of what's going on, and pass it down so that we can reach more individuals. We've launched the disparity study specific website, which is Tallahassee Leon County DisparityStudy.com. This is a 24/7 website that MGT is managing. Here that the business owners can go in and give us comments, and it comes directly to us. Also here on this website is where you can find out about the different community events that we're conducting, and frequently questions and answers that relate to the disparity study, and just information in general. So it's a very good website to keep up to date on what's happening with the disparity study. The next steps over the next 60 days is critical. This is where we will complete our analysis. That's going to tell us whether or not businesses are underutilized, overutilized, if there's parity. So basically what we're saying is we're trying to determine whether or not there's still a factual predicate for the city and the county to continue their programs of inclusion. This will give us that information. So we will do more interviews. We will determine the city's relevant geographic market. We've already done one for the county. We're finishing up with the city now. Then we'll do utilization analysis, that is who won contracts, And we look at different ethnic categories: African American, Asian Americans, Native American, Hispanic Americans, and non-minority women. And then we look at the business categories of construction, A&E, professional service, other services, and materials and supplies. So we'll look at all those categories. And then we're looking at 5 years as a snapshot in time to do our analysis, and that is 2012 through 2016. So we will do 2 additional focus groups. One of them will be the ACDBE focus group at the airport, those airport concessionaires. We'll talk to them about their concerns and issues and experiences out at the airport. And then we will begin our telephone survey, where we will be completing over 500 different surveys, which means we call thousands of business owners to get their input related to barriers, experiences, and those types of things. How you can help as we go through these next few months. We will be reaching out to the business community, asking them to participate on one-on-one interviews, asking them to participate with the telephone surveys, asking them to participate in focus groups as they are called. So, the more people that know about us conducting the study, the more receptive they will be, and the more they will participate. So we're going to crunch the numbers. The numbers are going to say what they say. And then hearing from the business community is what we call put a voice to the numbers, and then that will give us our total picture of what's happening in this market area related to doing business with the city, the county, and Blueprint. And that is the Cliff Notes version of the disparity study, where we're going for the next 60 days. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Reggie? Thank you. All right, Reggie, thank you so much. Very valuable information. And as you all know, this forms the basis of our MWSBE program if it is to withstand a legal challenge if that were to happen. So that's very important. Commissioner Dozier.
I will preface this by looking towards Ben. We discussed something related to certifications and briefing, where your nod earlier was that you already have that, or I'll bring it up now just to reinforce. Please. As we discussed.
Yes.
This came from a panel discussion of a number of high-tech business owners out at Innovation Park several months ago, and Ben and I have talked about it a couple times. There was a comment made by a couple of folks, one in particular, saying that she had certifications from other government entities that she wondered why they weren't accepted as a certification within city and county. I thought that was a fair point, and or a fair question, I should say. And so when we discussed it, we talked about possibly looking at this both directions. I love the idea of expanding our certification to other organizations. This is great. But looking for ways that we can accept other certifications to make that process easier. Do you need any specific direction, Ben, on that?
I don't, Mr. Chairman.
No, go ahead, Ben.
I'm not sure that I do. What I would proffer is that we would, and it's welcome. Let me always say, specific direction is welcome. But we would convey that opportunity to the MGT team that is working specifically on this analysis, which is where the codification would occur, to analyze what the possibilities were and to bring that back as part of the report.
Okay.
So perhaps it's an opportunity with Reggie. I'm sorry, I know I said no questions. I'll let you all discuss it with him if there's any examples. I think that's fantastic.
If that's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What that is reciprocal certification is what it's called. And one of my former legislative aides, Rachel Favors, is working on something like that. I know she's discussed that with me before, and she encourages that kind of reciprocal acceptance of certification. So you might want to, Al, do you know Rachel?
I do.
Mr. Chair, I think that's a really good point, and this falls into the category of businesses that we've talked about before that are doing most of their business outside of the community. And so they may not think about our certifications as much until they need it at the 11th hour or something. So I think that reciprocity would be really critical for us. Thank you.
Okay. It's certainly something we should look into, I think. All right. Any other questions, comments? Then we move to consent. Is there a motion to approve consent?
I don't have a quorum.
Oh.
We got a quorum?
What happened to?
I believe Commissioner Daly will be back.
I think we're good. Commissioner,
1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, we're good.
There they are.
We good?
City commissioners briefly left in protest.
Wasn't enough candy.
All right.
We need 4. Hold on. Commissioner.
They can probably hear the meeting.
Yes.
Fortunately, we can't hear them.
Where did Commissioner Daly get off to?
As I understand, we just need a quorum of the body, correct?
You've got it, because you got one on the phone.
There he is.
We're good.
Yeah. We're good.
John?
Okay. All right. Let's
Motion with
move.
consent.
Okay. There's a motion.
TMI.
Motion. Yeah.
With the
Yes.
More information than we want.
Motion and second to approve consent with item number 8 being pulled from the consent agenda. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. That takes us then to item number 8 as an item pulled from consent. I know we have some speakers on that item. Ben?
Just very quickly, Commissioners, this is ratification of the workshop you just had at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
As we discussed at that time, anybody that wished to speak, this would be an appropriate time to do that. The item itself was delivered to the table, so it should be in front of you. At this point in time, Mr. Chairman, I have 2 speakers' cards, and I'm asking the audience for a little bit of assistance. There is one that's not for this item. The other one did not give an item. Is Erasmo Bicamayer for this item by chance? Or do you have any additional? If anybody has additional speakers' cards.
There's one.
Okay, well, we can get started.
Okay.
These are all for 8. Okay. So we do have some speaker cards. I just handed to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We've got 3 speakers so far for item number 8. If there are others who wish to speak, speaker cards are in the back. You will be given 3 minutes to speak. If you give us your name and address when you approach the microphone, please. The first speaker is Jeremy Anderson.
All right. Good afternoon. Attorney Jeremy Anderson, 1689 Mahan Center Boulevard. I'm a community association attorney. What is that? I represent communities. I represent about 200 community associations. My main office is here in Tallahassee, about 70 here in the Leon County, city of Tallahassee area, about 12,000 residents. I tell you that because I deal with the issues that the unintended consequences, the things when after you make your decision at this table, the commissions separately or the planning departments make. I deal with the unintended consequences and dealing with the communities and the issues with the infrastructure that's either proposed or the developments that are built. Communities such as Summerbrook, that's why I'm here today, represent Summerbrook Properties Association. We recognize the benefit of infrastructure, but the infrastructure must be at the right place, the right time, and in a well thought out manner. Option A and B appear to achieve those goals. They're well thought out. They're things that you've in the right location and appear to be the right time to do them. But option C, it's not the right place, not the right time, and used to be well thought out. Seems a little rushed now. Why is it not the right place? As rightly pointed out by Commissioner Proctor, this project does jump in line if you look at the history of other projects that were supposed to be funded. Yes, we say they're going to be funded by the state, but nobody up here controls the purse strings of the state. Oftentimes, the amounts change, the timelines changed, and I'm sure you've had it before where the money just doesn't show up, the economy downturns, and the money's not there. The north side is bustling. You see the businesses. A lot of them are busy. The restaurants are busy. You go to the south side, the children, the families, they're struggling, and there's infrastructure that needs to be placed there because I must respectfully disagree, but the infrastructure does bring jobs because you have the adequate infrastructure, you have the adequate roadways, the businesses are going to come, they're going to bring jobs down to the areas that need them, and they drastically need them. So it's really not in the right place at this point. Not the right time. Proposed development on the Bannerman area, yeah, it's causing a lot of people a heartache right now, but it is based upon the numbers that Mr. Latimer showed, which were the market-based numbers. We do have a demand for housing right now, and that's all market-driven. But if you look at your report, you're increasing, you're escalating, and you're accelerating when the Bannerman project was supposed to be done. You are artificially creating a need, and what's going to happen along all those undeveloped parcels, they're going to be developed in a much more accelerated race and pace, and probably more than they should be. In the last 11 years of practicing community association law.
Your 3 minutes are up. If you could conclude your comments.
All right. I've seen a lot of unintended consequences. I believe right here we're going to oversaturate the market with the businesses and the homes in that area, and it's not going to do what a lot of you talk about is creating affordable housing for the people that need it. The median home prices that were shown up there, the houses up there are not going to be that price. They're going to be $300,000-$400,000 houses, and they're going to be too expensive for our employment base.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy.
We oppose option C. Thank you.
And Jeremy, I want to correct you on something. You painted the south side of town with a very broad brush. I live on the south side of town, and where I live and where many of my neighbors live does not reflect what you just suggested. So I just want to, are there challenges? Certainly there are in areas, but I just had to correct that broad brush description that you gave of the south side of town.
You're absolutely right, and a lot of my clients are down there, and we have great neighborhoods and great people, and not really struggling. It's just there's a large swath of areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tommy Pipkin. Tommy, if you would give us your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me this time. My name is Tommy Pipkin. I'm a resident of the Summerbrook community. I also serve currently as the president of the Summerbrook Property Owners Association. Our community of over 700 residents and property owners is invested deeply in the larger success of the Bannerman Corridor. We have been keeping a close eye on the development projects in the corridor, and we have discussed the future of developments that we feel would be consistent with our version of the corridor. After community discussions, we feel at this time any funding option for the Northeast Connector, Bannerman Road widening, that allows funding allocation for any phase of the project prior to 2027 would be incompatible to our quality of life and the long-term vision of the corridor. Immediate funding would likely result in the overdevelopment of the existing vacant or underdeveloped parcels to a level that is simply not sustainable over time. As such, we are requesting an 8-year delay for the funding allocation of the project, which would allow breathing room for the residents and for the commercial and residential developments occurring in the corridor and to promote for that sustainable growth. We believe that steady and sustainable growth is not only good for our community, but for Leon County and its residents as a whole. We would humbly ask that the board workshop occurring today, that action item number 2, the commission support option A or option B. Obviously, you've approved option C, and our request would be to amend option C to delay the bond funding for the Northeast Corridor, allowing for an 8-year delay. We support the funding schedule under action item 2, option A, which would have the funding for the planning beginning in 2027 and would be more consistent with the process of the neighborhoods that will be impacted by the Bannerman Corridor expansion. So with that, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Max Hurley. Max, if you would approach the microphone, give us your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Max Hurley, 117 South Gadsden Street. I'm here today on behalf of the Summerbrook Property Owners Association. It's always nice to come before and witness the IA, to have everyone sitting at the same table. It reminds me of the worst Thanksgiving ever. We're asking you today to accept an amended Option C, which would delay the Bannerman Road project funding to be consistent with the Option B funding schedule. We feel that this approach is a middle-of-the-road approach. It is sooner than the funding schedule of Option A, but obviously a short 5-year delay from Option C. We really think that this is more consistent with the Bannerman community's commercial and residential growth, and we feel like we know the project's going to get done, but at this point, seeing what has happened with some of the commercial and residential developments, this would give a nice and needed breathing room for the project. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Okay. Were you invited back? I'm curious.
Yes, yeah.
Next speaker.
I think that was, well, we have 2 other speakers. We have one, again, that did not identify an item that they wanted to speak to.
Erasmo Bicamayer.
Is that person here?
Is that person here?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, on point that
Commissioner Nick Maddox.
I'm a little confused that Mr. Hurley grabbed me earlier and I spoke to him and I saw the correspondence. This is a county road, so I'm not going to, second guess my colleagues in the county. But what's being asked is to slow down the widening of the road to stop development. I assume from the comments, but the widening of the road does not mean you get development approval. I want to make sure that the audience understands that.
Right.
The widening of the road may give concurrency, but development approval happens through the county commission. So just because the road is widened doesn't mean that you have development approval. And there's lots of examples throughout the community. Blairstone Road is one example where you had development only on the corridor, on the corners, and the rest of the corridor had no development whatsoever, except what was existing. So the widening of the road and the funding for the widening of the road will not give development approval in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Nick Maddox.
Thank you. I believe this would be the proper time also to take up the recommendation by our colleague Commissioner Deloge in his letter.
Yes.
Actually, I think it's a pretty good idea. I've lived in Summerbrook. I've driven that road. I've been congested on that road. That extension to me seems like
the microphone.
Yes. That extension up through Bull Headley does not sound like a bad idea to me. And if you would entertain it, Mr. Chair, what I'd like to do is make a motion for the ratification, but also including that ratification, the amendment asked for, or actually along with that ratification, asked for Blueprint to come back with an evaluation of what it would take to widen Bannerman to Bull Headley and bring back options to the IA to accomplish so. That would be my motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, there's a second to the motion.
I'm sorry. Could you give, I'm just reading this now.
Yeah.
Can we get a description of what this is?
Yeah, what this is about?
Yeah, earlier, Commissioner Deloge came back or Commissioner Deloge is not here during the workshop. As a part of the addition to the package, there was a letter that was given to us all that read a couple of things that he would suggest or recommend that we do, kind of told us where he stands on some things. One of which was, as noted in the workshop material, scenario C, accomplish advanced funding. He had asked that we consider that. And also he, at the third paragraph there, he says, I'm asking that we give Blueprint staff direction to evaluate what it would take to widen Bannerman to Bull Headley Road and bring back options to the IA to accomplish this. I'm simply just making that motion for him as I think it would be a good job. It doesn't say that we're going to do it, but it does bring back the
But you included the ratification of option C.
Ratification of option C, but I'm asking along with that to bring back that that recommendation that he's asking for us to see what it would take to evaluate it. Now, if you would like for me to separate it, I would separate it, but that was my motion.
I'm confused. Is he asking just for that connector or
Yeah, that's all he's asking for in the letter.
Just in the letter.
Asking that it be expanded from going to Tequesta to go all the analysis be expanded to go all the way to Bull Heatley. I would really feel more comfortable if we could deal with that separately.
I'll rescind my motion and just make my motion for ratification.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to ratify the vote that was taken earlier to accept recommendation C for advanced funding. If there are no more questions, all in favor of that motion to ratify signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Commissioner Nick Maddox.
Thank you.
And then Commissioner Ziffer.
All I'm simply doing is asking for what the commissioner asked for in his letter. It was a recommendation for staff to bring back an item looking at what it would take to expand the widening from Tequesta all the way through Bull Headley. It's not necessarily asking today for us to approve that. It's just asking what it would take for it to happen.
Second.
That's all I'm asking for.
Okay. And Commissioner, that would be what it would take in terms of funding to make that happen?
Yes.
Okay.
How,
Commissioner
anybody
Ziffer?
have any idea how long that is?
Okay, let me get the motion in the proper order. We've got a motion by Commissioner Nick Maddox. We've got a second by Commissioner Ziffer. Commissioner Miller, did you have a question? Wanted to know how long the segment.
I wanted to know if anybody knew anything about how much distance that was.
It's less than a mile.
It's less than a mile.
Less than a mile.
Yes.
Do we know how much it costs?
Well, that's
what
what they would bring back to us.
Yeah.
I think that's what, if I understand the motion correctly, what we would do is we would look at funding, we would look at process. Is it an agenda is it a project modification? Is it not? What would it look like? We'll bring back all that information to you. My presumption is at the next IA meeting for your consideration.
That's why we're treating it separately.
Yeah. Commissioner Dozier.
I understand, why the question needs to be asked now. I'm okay with the agenda item. Once you start construction like this, better to do it holistically than piecemeal. I get that. But we just decided to take a huge chunk out of our sales tax proceeds over the life of 20 years because we're going to bond things in advance and because we're going to move down to option C, which includes Bannerman in the first place. So I am doubly concerned now that we are eating into our already shrinking infrastructure dollars by expanding anything like this. So I am okay with the agenda item, but if we have that, I want to see the big picture. I want to see all of the different ways we are taking a hit on that final total and impacting all of those projects that are not fully funded. We've already done this with undergrounding utilities on Magnolia. We've done it in a lot of different ways, and we haven't even gotten to 2020 yet. So we got to be really careful with this. So I'm good with the agenda item, but let's make sure we look at it holistically, if you don't mind.
Yeah, at this point, it's just for information purposes.
Yeah, on that point, I mean,
Maddox.
look, I'm not saying do it at the detriment of other projects that we have. I do think that we have to look at it holistically to make sure that it does not impede us from doing, the list of projects that we have in place. But I do think it's a good thing, like you said, it's a good thing for us to at least, if we're going to think about it, to look at it right now versus, years down the road to see if it fits into the grand scheme of what we're trying to do. So I'm not saying I'm all there for it right now, but I am saying I think we should evaluate it.
I guess what I'm saying, to be more direct about it, is anything we do like that will have an impact on our ability to complete the projects that are on our list, and we've already taken steps. So to make that choice does have an impact on other projects, period, full stop. So it's got to be a very compelling case, and that's what I want to see versus other projects.
Understood.
And it could open the floodgates for others to come and request the same thing. Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to know why it wasn't included originally. This element, this piece of.
Okay, so, and it might be helpful also just for the general discussion to just sort of talk about where we came into with option 2C versus some of the commentary. Where we come into on option 2C is one of 27 blueprint projects that have been around for a good 6 years, certainly 5 years going out to the voters. The voters approved it by 2/3 margin. And the Bannerman Road project does not include Bull Headley. It does not speak to any development along the corridor. It simply speaks to 4-laning from Thomasville Road to Tequesta and then multimodal improvements all the way over to Meridian. Right. So that is what staff prepared going into this agenda. As Commissioner Maddox noted, and I know the discussion's been going on, Commissioner Deloge in his letter acknowledging he couldn't be here, and also acknowledging there's a completely separate, not necessarily involved here at the IA, but the county, I believe, is considering some other quasi-judicial process for a development neighbors might believe is related. Is there an opportunity to look at this holistically? And I think that's what this second motion really speaks to. But in answer to your question in terms of why did we not bring...
If the county wants this, could it not come out of the county share?
We need the information.
Yeah, so I'm against it now, and I'll be against it later. If the county wants to, with its 10% of the dollars, decides that they want to extend or add this to it, I think it's totally within their right to do that. To fiddle with what was put out to voters and approved, I'm not in favor of.
Okay, Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually agree with the mayor to the point where I think that, first of all, I'm going to be supportive of coming back and discussing it with more information at hand, but this may rise to the point of a significant change, which requires another higher level, 2/3 majority, et cetera, of the vote of the board. So just letting and this is not an opinion, this is just an observation that it seems to me that this is a change in the project from what it was before that rises to the level of that test. And then I'm hoping that we'll hear back in September whether that's the case or not.
Commissioner Maddox.
I agree with a lot that's been said, but I don't want to debate it here and then debate it at the next meeting. Right. I'm okay with moving it forward as a courtesy for a commissioner that's not here. We'll come back and have full information and make a decision.
Right.
Okay. Sounds like a question was called to me. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. You against it?
I'm opposed, right.
Okay. That's two of us that are opposed to it. But motion carries. So we'll have that come back to us.
Yes, sir. We'll prepare
meeting.
that comprehensive analysis, and thank you for that. Chairman, I think that concludes consent items.
Yes. So we now move to general business and presentations. Members, at this point, we need the county to, if you all have made a decision about who the vice chair will be.
Vote on consent?
I make a motion for, sorry.
Oh, did we not make a motion on that?
We need to do 8, don't we?
Yes. So the poll, did you do the poll consent item?
Yeah, we're done with consent.
Yes.
So
But there is one thing, if I can, Mr. Chairman. Go back to the last slide. I do want to highlight, this was asked for, Commissioner Maddox?
Yes, thank you.
This was asked for in prior discussion, a geographical representation of what was entailed in option C, 2C, and I just didn't want to drive by it. We were able to pull that together during the break.
Thank you.
And we did, by the way, take the motion and pass it on item 8.
Yes.
That was the...
Did we vote on consent?
That was the ratification.
Consent went first, and then we took up
Yeah.
item 8.
Yeah. We voted to ratify the vote that we took earlier during the workshop.
I didn't remember voting on consent. It's been a long day.
Yeah, it has been. All right, so that brings us back to item 12. Commissioner Lindley, you had a...
Before you go away from the slide, could you please print that out and distribute it or email it to us so we all have it?
the map.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We'll be happy to do that.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Commissioner Lindley?
I make
for
a motion that Commissioner Brian Deloge, in absentia,
Second.
gets the job as vice chair.
Brilliant.
There's a motion
Think you'll
by
like it.
Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Daly. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
I think he'll be happy.
I'm sure he will. That's what happens when you miss a meeting and you ask for things to happen. All right.
You guys are good.
That brings us to item number 13.
Mr. Chairman, I move
Is this going to be an
acceptance of the
action item, or
Northeast
we
Gateway
just...
This is an
project
action
update.
item, yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Authorization to procure Walani Boulevard Phase 1 P&E study, including budgetary allocation and approval of funding and strategy for design and construction of Walani Boulevard segments 2 and 3.
Okay, there's a motion, and a motion by Commissioner Scott Maddox, second by Commissioner Ziffer. We do have a speaker on that item, Ms. Carrie Roth. Carrie, you still here? Okay, Carrie, if you would give your name and address for the record, you have 3 minutes. Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so I am Carrie Roth with Dean Mead and Dunbar, and I am here for the Buckhead Homeowners Association. We have, but if you don't know where Buckhead is, they are about 165 plus homes just north of Centerville Road, just north, on the east side of Centerville Road, just north of I-10. The eventual Walani development will wrap its north and eastern borders. So this road project is the very first thing that you will consider as your joint commissions that will dictate what's going to happen in this community. So we have had very good discussions with the Blueprint staff. They have come and visited with the Homeowners Association, and we're going to have a robust community involvement piece of this PD&E. Here's our concern, and I must say that Ben and Autumn and all of your staff have been very open to hearing our concerns and very receptive to our ideas. This PD&E, for the purposes of making sure that you are eligible for federal funding, will only analyze the overpass over I-10. And we all know that this will eventually be an interchange. As you can imagine, an overpass and an interchange are going to have very different impacts on the neighborhood. Because this PD&E has to be limited in its official form, my understanding, can be confirmed by your staff, is they're going to do an additional study that will take into account the concerns that the neighborhood has. Here's the deal. Interchange is going to set the location of the overpass will set the location of the eventual interchange. And so we don't want to miss the opportunity when we are doing that to make sure that we have done everything we can to address the concerns in the neighborhood and the mitigation of the noise, the air, the lighting, the traffic, everything that's going to come eventually. So we're trying to get in early, make sure our concerns are dealt with and mitigated, and that's really it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
No, there are no more speakers. Commissioner Dozier and then Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to first say thanks to Carrie and to some of the residents in Buckhead. I was contacted over a year ago just to talk through maybe it was 2 years ago now, the process of this. So we all know what happens when we get a lot of people involved at the 11th hour when construction's about to happen and we can't do anything. So I just wanted to thank them for really trying to get ahead of this. And in this discussion, it was very reminiscent of action we took at CRTPA a number of years ago when we asked FDOT to expand the study area, not just to look at the overpass at Thomas Hill Road, but the potential future overpass at Walani. And that was very good. It was a very constructive conversation. So it seems we have precedent for this. And Ben, I would like to know just a bit more about the two studies versus the one. I understand if the RFP's already been let for the PD&E or whatever it might be, why we might separate that. But just if you could confirm that they'll be working parallel. And then I have one other question.
Yeah, let me just simply confirm that they will be working parallel. And I, in turn, want to thank Carrie and Ms. Roth and the neighbors out at Buckhead and all the various stakeholders. We didn't wait at Blueprint or in the planning department for that matter for this PD&E to begin that comprehensive community engagement, and this won't be the only mechanism for it, but we are going to utilize it with full cognizance and knowledge of concerns of stakeholders around, and the fact that we've got one chance to site the overpass in the right place, both with the enhancements that are afforded with this project and also to mitigate any kind of negative attribute that could potentially come. So I don't know if Autumn has anything further to add in terms of the additional contract, but I believe it's simply put, it's accommodated, and I'm confident that it will be addressed.
Yeah, I agree with Ben and what everybody said. I think that doing additional analysis to know what the full build-out impacts might be is only going to make this project stronger. Yeah. So working with the neighborhood to identify how we might be able to mitigate some of those impacts through the road design, I think is a great way.
And thank you. I should have included that I have been in one neighborhood meeting with the two of you and a lot of other staff that is well ahead of a project. This is Lake Lafayette, and now I did hear that you were in the neighborhood as well. I think we've got a different approach to getting involved here, and really appreciate that, being very strategic about that and getting involved with the neighborhoods early and all stakeholders. So this is great. So it's going to look holistically at all these various factors, from environmental to noise to everything else that Carrie mentioned. And you don't need any other direction to initiate that second study. It's part of it. Okay. The only other point I was going to bring up here is, and this may be a county issue, it may be Blueprint and county, but years ago we were talking about the Thornton Road extension, and I'm not sure if we ever got to some resolution. I'm sure Wayne would know this and some others. So I just want to tee this up for the next time we talk about this, unless there's an answer right now. There are restrictions on where we can cross the Greenway, and this is related to Greenway and Trails with the state and our agreements on the Miccosukee Greenway. And there was discussion, I believe, I'm going back several years, to relocate that extension or that crossing from Arundel or Edenfield down to Thornton Road, and that dovetails with some other things that we were working on Thornton Road and Vineland. So I think the timing of this to restart that discussion, see if there's anything we need to do with the state. The Greenway is a very sensitive issue for a lot of folks, and we similarly need to get ahead of that. And I think that may play into some of the discussions about the flyover, the overpass as well. So I don't know if you need any more direction than that, Ben, but I just want to make sure that we're looking at all pieces of this as we move forward.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Miller, did you?
Yes, sir.
Miller,
Thank you.
And we'll be followed by Commissioner
Well, first of all, on that particular point, it's my understanding that it has been approved all the way up to the cabinet level, and it has not been agended before the cabinet for various reasons. So I think that's where that is.
The relocation of the Greenway extension, and Wayne is nodding behind you. Okay. I had not gotten an update. This was something we discussed in briefing, and just wanted to bring it up today, so thank you very much.
Yeah, that's just memory from 2 years ago or something. What I wanted to mention, though, is that the city has a PUD here on this half of the property, on the city's half of the property, and if that PUD defines where commercial will go, et cetera, et cetera. And I looking at the map, I see that there's a long stretch where the interchange could conceivably go. And when we did the PUD, I don't remember really having any information on what was on the other side of the interstate. So that needs to go into our information, that PUD, because it is very definitely relevant if we should be discussing any changes in that, moving that commercial a little bit up and down I-10. So I guess what my main point is that there is flexibility here, and that that PUD should not be the do-all and end-all and the driver of the definition of where that interchange is going to go, because the city has this big piece and the Wilani Arch has a big piece. There's a big stretch where, there's some movement that could occur. So when you're going, that's a little bit unusual. You don't usually have that situation when you do a PD&E. You're usually much more constrained than that. So I think it's important to broaden the scope of this particular discussion when you go forward with that. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Ziffer, followed by Commissioner Daly.
I just wanted to reinforce so that it's extremely clear, and I've had the conversation with various members of our staff. I want to reinforce what Commissioner Dozier said and Commissioner Miller, and that is, while I recognize that there are needs to keep this separate for various reasons, it is extremely important for us to be able to be cognizant of what might happen. I mean, if you can imagine us, for example, I'm not suggesting it's the same, but if we all of a sudden now chose to force a interchange on Meridian Road over I-10, what that would be like. Whereas obviously when I-10 was done and Mahan Drive, there was a lot of planning put into that, and that system works very well. So I understand that we can't do that as part of the actual plan, but clearly keep it in mind so that we have our stormwater issues resolved and we have all those other land issues resolved.
Good. Commissioner Daly, you good? Okay. All right. Yeah, I too think that is a good way of work, being that you all have started, is to include the neighborhoods. You know, one of the things that we've recognized as a city is that, you know, as we grow, particularly within the urban services area, there is going to be encroachment on our traditional neighborhoods and some of the newer developed neighborhoods. But what we've asked our staff is to work with those neighborhoods where there are homeowners associations or neighborhood associations to address their issues, and we've found lots of success through that process. And so I'm glad to hear that we're doing that with the Buckhead neighborhood as well, even though it's not within the context of what we're doing in the city. Any other comments?
I have a question. Speaking on this side of the interstate, there's Pemberton Road here, and at this point, I think that's just a little dirt road, but that interjects itself into the property, into the city's property. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to know how and if or whether you probably need to look at whether that needs to be linked up with the traffic circulation pattern inside of the Willani development or not. I mean, it will generate traffic onto Centerville potentially or not. I mean, at this point, they only have one outlet that is right on Centerville, and it may be that if it is incorporated in the larger, I'm at a little bit of an advantage because I'm looking this up on Google Maps, and I know nobody else can see what I see, but when you look at it, this is just sticking right out in the middle of the property, and you might want to consider how that is going to be affected.
Okay. Ben assures me that all of that will be incorporated as we move forward, so thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, all in favor of the motion on item 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to item number 14. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Scott Maddox, seconded by Commissioner Nick Maddox. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously. We don't have any additional speaker cards, but if there are citizens who would like to be heard, if you would fill out a speaker card and get it to us, we'll give you an opportunity to address the board. There being Commissioner Dozier.
I know we've had a long day, but I have one last thing. On behalf of the Innovation Park Board, I believe I saw Ron Miller here, our executive director, a little while ago. An idea that's been floated. It has been discussed with Ben and some partners at FSU and others. There is a suggestion to look at naming the road around Innovation Park, FSU's property, the Innovation Parkway, or something of that, and really branding that, and our kind of lifting up our partnership with FAMU and FSU. So not suggesting we absolutely do it, but I would love to have some board action to just allow our staff to engage in some discussion with our partners out there and see if this is something we want to do and bring us back a recommendation. Would that be acceptable?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yep. No
We need a
issues from me.
motion
We're good.
or anything?
Okay. We need a motion.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing, is there any further comments, questions, suggestions? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.
Yeah.